Hey everybody, we're live and in stereo, so we'll be starting off with solving the remaining MCQs of this guest paper that I've made. Essentially, I've always said that there can practically be no guest paper for the MCQs. However, the main objective of solving an MCQ paper with you guys is to give you guys a thought process of how to go about MCQs and what should be your mindset and mentality while solving the MCQ. So that is what we're going to do today. And I'll just be solving MCQs till I desire, to the point where I feel like if I get tired in between, just call it a day and then we'll do a little gupshup right in the end. Okay? So I feel like I should start. Can I get a yes? Yes in the chat box? Yes? Chalo ji. Too much gupshup. Yes, okay, let's start everybody. Chalo, let's start. So this question says, before these questions, I've solved these questions 6 and 5 prior to the question number 7. I've solved them, and there's the video available, which was the first video that I made actually for your past paper session, for your MCQ preparation. Also, will the recording be available? Might be, man, might be. It depends. Let's see. Okay. The symbols and electronic structures of some elements are shown below. Which formula is correct for the compound containing silicon? Now, if you check the outermost electrons, obviously we know that in order for a compound to be formed, we need to check out the outermost electrons, the valence electrons, right? The number of electrons that would be gained, lost, or shared all depends on the valence electrons, right? The valence electrons are actually involved in the chemical bonding. So if you check silicon out, it has 4 electrons in its outermost shell, 4 electrons, and that means that it's going to make 4 bonds, right? 4 electrons will be either shared or gained or lost. But if you check all the options out, it's basically a simple covalent molecule that's being formed in all the options. That means that obviously there's going to be a sharing of electrons. They're all non-metals, right? So there's going to be sharing of electrons between them. Covalent bonding would take place. So we have to check out the formula that's going to be formed. So silicon is in group 4. It has 4 outermost electrons. Oxygen is in group 6. It has 6 outermost electrons. Therefore it requires 2 more electrons to have a complete octet. Therefore it will make 2 bonds, right? And hydrogen is in no group. We sometimes consider it as a part of group 1, but it's in no group. So it only has 1 electron in its outermost shell, and since it only has 1 shell, that means that it needs 1 more electron to achieve that stable duplet, right? So it's going to make 1 more bond. And fluorine is in group 7. It needs 1 electron to become stable. Therefore it makes 1 bond. Nitrogen is in group 5. It needs 3 electrons to become stable. Therefore it makes 3 bonds. Now we have to check out the formulas, right? First formula is like, sometimes I think about this and I say like Cambridge sometimes Cambridge can give you such easy MCQs, like you could just even eliminate the option. Now if you check A out, why is A wrong? A is saying that 1 fluorine is actually being bonded to 4 silicons. It's like something like this. 1 fluorine is bonded to 1 silicon, another silicon, another silicon, another silicon. And this is absurd, right? The reason is because fluorine is in group 7. It can only make 1 bond. Here it has made 1, 2, 3, 4 bonds, right? So A is wrong based on that. And A can also be wrong based on that silicon is in group 4. It has to make 4 bonds, and here it has only made 1 bond, right? So if you think about any of the, if you think about, the perspective, if you think about from the perspective of fluorine, or if you think about from the perspective of silicon, both will give you a wrong answer. If you check B out, B seems right. Why? Because each silicon is bonded to 4 hydrogen atoms. That means that एक hydrogen इधर bond है, एक इधर bonded है, एक इधर bonded है, इधर bonded है. And that is the right option, because hydrogen can make 1 bond, 1 bond, 1 bond, 1 bond, 1 bond here. And silicon, since it's in group 4, it needs to make 4 bonds, and it has made 4 bonds. 1, 2, 3, 4. So B is the right option for it, right? If you check C out, why is C wrong? C is saying that 1 silicon is actually bonded to 5 nitrogen atoms. So it's giving you something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's 5, right? Why is this wrong? Because silicon is in group 4. It only has 4 outermost electrons. It can only make 4 bonds. Here silicon has made 5 bonds. And if you think from the perspective of nitrogen is basically in group 5. It can only make 3 bonds because it needs 3 electrons to become stable, but here it has only made 1. So C is wrong. And if you check D out, D is also absurd, that each oxygen is bonded to 2 silicon atoms, right? Now this may seem right to you guys. You guys might think, hey, an oxygen can make two bonds and it has made two bonds, but think from the perspective of silicon, right? Both should be right. Silicon is in group 4, it can make 4 bonds, but here it has only made one, right? It needs to make 3 more bonds, which is not shown here. So D is also wrong. Most of you guys would have gone for D because you guys would say, oh, ye to sand hai. Sand is not Si2O, you dumbo. Sand is SiO2. Okay, that's basically sand. So the way you need to go about MCQs is like this, right? You need to check out why an answer is a right answer and why the other options are wrong, right? If you keep this in mind, you need not to recheck your entire paper after your Cambridge exams. You just need to go about it like this and you'll be done with the paper within 30-35 minutes, to be very honest, right? And you don't even need to recheck. Okay? So that's what we are gonna do. Siri is talking in my ear, man. Come on, Siri, keep quiet. Okay. Question 8 says, which statement is correct? When gaseous ammonia becomes liquid ammonia, the change is endothermic. Now, I've discussed this a gazillion times in my live sessions and as well as like in the past paper session. Whenever a gas converts into a liquid and a liquid converts into a solid, that's basically an exothermic reaction, and a solid goes into, yes or no? Something? You want to ask something? No? Okay, and a solid goes into a liquid and then a liquid goes into a gas. That's basically endo, right? And the reason is pretty simple. You could either rote learn it at this point, but you could use logic as well. And the logic is that obviously when a gas is going into a liquid, why is it exothermic? Because gas particles, they have really high energy, right? They have weak intermolecular forces of attraction. They move randomly at high speeds. And the reason why they move randomly at high speeds is because they have a lot of energy. And in order for gas particles to be converted into liquid, they need to be able to lose that energy, move slower, closer together, and then that intermolecular forces of attraction would be strengthened. The particles would start to glue together. So for a gas to go into a liquid, it needs to lose that extra energy to the surroundings. And obviously, when energy is released to the surrounding, it's basically an exothermic reaction, right? And similarly is the case with a liquid going into a solid. Liquid has more energy than solid, so in order for those those liquid particles to move slower and to glue together, they need to lose that extra energy that they possess, right? So that is why a gas to a liquid and a liquid to a solid is exo. And if you check from the other perspective, which is solid to liquid and liquid to gas, that's endo, because obviously in order to convert a solid to a liquid, you need to provide it with the extra energy that it needs by heating it, like ice ko jo hai pani mein convert karte ho, you heat it, right? So when you heat it, that solid particles, they actually gain that extra energy. So since gain of energy is taking place, bonds are being broken, it's an endothermic reaction. So based on this, if you check our MCQs out, it says when gaseous ammonia becomes liquid ammonia, it's going from a gas to liquid. We know it's an exothermic reaction. It's not endo, it's exo. So A is wrong. B says when liquid ethanol becomes solid ethanol, liquid is going into a solid, it's again an exothermic reaction, and B is right? So liquid to a solid is an exothermic reaction. B is true. If you check C and D out, C is saying when liquid water becomes a gaseous water, that means that's an endothermic reaction. Why? Because liquid ko aap wo extra energy de rahe ho that it needs, so it's endothermic. C is wrong. When solid copper becomes liquid copper, the change is exothermic. No, it's endothermic. Solid to a liquid is endo. So you could either rote learn this or use your common sense, right? If you've studied from me, obviously. Question 9 says rubidium is in group 1 and bromine is in group 7, right? So rubidium is in group 1 and bromine is in group 7. That means rubidium is going to lose 1 electron, bromine is going to gain 1 electron. There's going to be a transfer of electrons from rubidium to bromine, forming oppositely charged ions, which are held together by strong electrostatic force of attraction. Ionic compound is going to be formed. It'll have high melting point, high boiling point, is going to be soluble in water, and so on and so forth and whatnot. It'll conduct electricity due to the in aqueous state and in molten state, but not in solid state because it does not have any free moving ions. So all of these things should come to your mind when you read such MCQs. Okay, so it's saying, how is a compound formed between rubidium and bromine? Each atom of bromine shares an electron. First of all, there's no sharing of an electron. It's an ionic compound, you dumbos. Okay, not you guys. Sometimes I see that everybody's getting the answer right in the chat box, right? That means that sometimes Cambridge can be very lenient, right? And not challenging MCQs at all. B says, each atom of bromine shares a pair of electrons. There's no sharing, dude. देखिए, इसीलिए मैं कहता हूँ, whenever you come across an MCQ in your O levels, in your IGCSE, 2 MCQs are automatically wrong. there is 50 even if you take an educated guess, you will have the chance of getting the MCQ right 50% of the time if you know that two options are always going to be very wrong. मतलब ये दो options तो बिल्कुल ही गलत है ना. And then if you check C out, C says each atom of bromine gives an electron. No, bromine gains an electron. It's a non-metal. Non-metals, they tend to gain electron rather than losing it. Metals, they tend to lose electrons, right? So bromine is not going to give an electron. Bromine is going to gain an electron or receive an electron. And D says yes. D saying each atom of bromine receives an electron from an atom of rubidium. Yes, there's a transfer of electron from rubidium to bromine. D is the right option. See, that's how easy MCQs are. Okay. Aqueous hydrogen peroxide undergoes catalytic decomposition as shown in the equation below. The diagram shows part of the apparatus used to measure the decomposition. So hydrogen peroxide is here, a catalyst is used, and it's also given you the reaction. Water is formed and oxygen gas is evolved, right? So this oxygen gas would be evolved right here, and it's there's gonna be a dumb scientist who just puts like a delivery tube and puts nothing to collect the oxygen, and that's just wastage of chemicals. Okay? So he obviously has to collect that oxygen gas that's being produced, and that's what the examiner is asking. The diagram shows part of the apparatus used to measure the rate of decomposition. Which piece of apparatus should be connected at X? We've studied this experiment a gazillion times. You need to connect a gas syringe right here in order to basically collect this oxygen gas. So gas syringe is B. A is wrong. Burette is used in titrations, is used to measure the volume of solutions in titration, be it an acid, be it a base. So A is wrong. C, let's talk about C for a moment, right? But let's check out the other option. D जो है, D is wrong. Why? Because a pipette is again used in titration. It's not used to pipette में तो आपके पास गैस आप collect ही नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि उसमें तो पहली बात तो इस apparatus में X में तो आप pipette लगा भी नहीं सकते और pipette में gas नहीं collect है. Pipette is also used for titration experiments, right? So that's also wrong. Now if you talk about B for a moment, some of you might think, oh, measuring cylinder तो याद पड़ता है कि हमने इस्तेमाल किया था. And when did we use a measuring cylinder? We used it in upward delivery and downward delivery, and we also inverted it when we were using an over water delivery. So measuring cylinder is used to measure the volume of a gas, right? It depends, right? So if you think about oxygen is more dense than air, right? So what would happen is that if you had an experiment like this and you wanted to collect oxygen, you had to have a delivery tube like this and a measuring cylinder like this, and you could collect oxygen like this right here as well. Why? Because since oxygen is more dense than air, it's gonna sink at the bottom and air is gonna be displaced at the top, and you could collect oxygen even in this experiment through the downward delivery method. Upward couldn't be used because oxygen is not less dense than air, it's more dense than air. That means कि upward delivery तो इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकते, और over water delivery भी आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हो oxygen का, because oxygen is only slightly soluble in water. So you could have also used over water delivery to collect this oxygen. What would happen is you would have like a delivery tube like such, and obviously you would have a trough right here, you would have a measuring cylinder inverted, and oxygen would be bubbled right here, oxygen would be bubbled right here, it would rise at the top, and the water would actually be displaced outwards or displaced downwards, right? And the reason over water delivery works for all the gases except for those which are soluble is because all gases are less dense. Yeah, all gases are less, I can hear myself in the echo. So all gases are less dense than air. Okay, that's why the over water delivery would have been used. Now, why isn't the measuring cylinder a right option here? Because it's saying which piece of apparatus is connected at position X. So position X is right here. In order to use a measuring cylinder, you need to elongate this delivery tube, and then you need a trough right here, and you need to put a measuring cylinder, invert a measuring cylinder, and blah blah blah. Or if you wanted to use downward delivery, again you would have to have such an apparatus for that, right? But it's specifically asking for apparatus X. You can't attach a measuring cylinder in the air, right? So that's why gas syringe is the right option and C is wrong. But even if you didn't know the logic behind why C was wrong, B is very very evident. Okay. In a sample of air, 25 degrees Celsius, at 25 degrees, the molecules of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide, so oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide all move with different average speeds, right? Now, it's saying which of the following lists of molecules is in order of decreasing average speed. We know that the speed is basically the rate of diffusion of these gases, right? And diffusion depends upon two things. It depends upon the relative mass, and it depends on the temperature, right? and the examiner in the question has kept the temperature constant. So if the temperature is constant, obviously the only thing that would affect the rate of diffusion or the speed of these gaseous molecules is going to be the mass of these gaseous molecules. And I always give the example of fatter guys. No, I'm not, no offense to fat people, or I'm not body shaming here. Okay, I have to make this clear because obviously I might get cancelled. But it's a very simple example to understand. If there's like a 400 pounds dude and there's like a 120 pounds dude, who's gonna win a race? Who's gonna run faster, right? Obviously, without exceptions, the faster dude, the faster dude will be the one which has a lower weight, right? He can move faster, he can run faster, right? And that is the reason why we could use common sense and common logic, that if a molecule is fatter, it's gonna move slower, it's gonna diffuse slower, right? And the lighter a molecule, the quicker it would diffuse. If you check the molecular masses of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide, oxygen, if I were to calculate it for it, oxygen is 16, and since you have 2 of those, times it by 2. Nitrogen is 14, 2 of those, times it by 2. Carbon dioxide, carbon is 12, oxygen is 16, times it by 2 because 2 oxygen. You add them together, that's 44. Here you get 28 AMU, and here you get 32 AMU, right? So if you check this out, which one would be the fastest? Obviously, nitrogen is going to be fastest, then because it has the lowest molecular mass, right? And then after it, oxygen is going to be the second fastest, and the fattest of them all is going to be the slowest. What's going on? Hey, what's happening in the chat box? I think I have to kick this dude out, man. Yeah. I feel like this dude is crossing the limits. Yeah. क्या मैं गलत उम्र को किक ना कर दूं यार? क्या इसका पूरा नाम क्या है, man? Get the hell out of here, dude. Has he left? Has he left or no? Let me check this out. Let's first kick them out, man. I kick this dude. Is it Umar Butt or is this another Umar? He's left. Leave kar diya. Okay, that's good. That's piece of shit. Okay, sorry. But I sometimes think how immature people can be. Seriously. Sorry, man. There are a lot of Umars here. There are only 2 of you. Okay. I sometimes feel like how immature people can be, right? You're here? Yes. Any question? Yes, go for it. कर रहा हूँ हती मैं कर रहा हूँ अपलोड करूँ ना करूँ अलग बात है कर रहा हूँ ठीक ओके which statement about all the so B is the right option C is A C and D are automatically wrong because they don't fastest ही सिर्फ अगर इधर कोई और nitrogen होता then we would have checked the other 2 out but you've already gotten the MCQ right 3 says, which statement about all the noble gases is correct? The number of protons in the atoms equals the number of neutron. No, that's not true all the time. Okay, I think it's this Umar. Let this dude come. इसकी पेंटी करते हैं the number of atoms in protons is the number of protons in the atoms equals the number of neutrons, right? That means कि if you check this out ये कह रहे हैं कि proton और neutron हमेशा equal होंगे. That's not true. If you take argon for an example, argon has a nucleon number of 40 and basically a proton number of 18, right? And if I want to find the number of neutrons, it's going to be 40 minus 18, and that's going to be like 40 minus 18, I think that's 22. And so 22 is the number of neutrons and protons is basically 18. So that's very absurd. A is wrong. The number of protons is never equal to, it's not necessarily going to be equal to the number of the number of neutrons. ठीक है? B अगर देखें the atoms each have a stable arrangement of electrons. Yes, noble gases के सब के stable arrangement of electrons. That literally means that they have a stable electronic configuration, right? So outermost electrons सारे complete हैं, valence shells जो हैं उनके सारे जो valence shells हैं they are all complete. ठीक है? So B seems to be the right option. I can circle B, but let's see why C and D are wrong. Their atoms each have 8 electrons in their outer shell. Now most of you would have gone for C, right? Because आप लोग क्या सोचते हैं? It's not किसी और ये पूरे past paper से mix MCQs हैं. It's not just one topic that I'm talking about. Okay, so why the reason why C is wrong is because 8 electrons हर एक में नहीं होता, आपको एक रट्टा लगवाया जाता है. They have a complete octet, they have a complete. If you check helium out, helium is 2 4, right? So helium only has 2 electrons in its outermost shell, and we know that helium only has one outermost shell, and we know that the first shell can hold up to a maximum of 2 electrons. So helium is also a stable. Helium also has a stable electronic configuration, or you could say a stable duplet. Now we don't call it an octet, we call it a duplet. इसलिए theory में मैं कहता था always write they have a stable electronic configuration, or right, they have a complete outermost shell. Never write that they have a complete octet, because helium is an exception to the complete octet. Although its valence shell is also complete, but it's not a complete octet, it's a complete duplet. Is this dude, let's check this out. Kidhar hai ye bacha? What's the name? ये कैसा नाम है एक बंदे ने? I think it's the same Umar dude, right? Is this the Umar dude who changed his name to this? Yeah, the one with the open mind. Let's kick this stupid man out. Shame on you, dude. Okay, yeah, I'm submitted. We've kicked this dude out. Okay, I mean, very cool people, right? So C is wrong. If you check D out, they exist as molecules containing 2 atoms. No, they are monoatomic. ये तो halogens की बात कर रहे हैं. Monoatomic हैं group 8s जो हैं, they are monoatomic. Halogens are diatomic. What do I mean by monoatomic? They are made up of unbonded atoms, right? So argon exists as Ar, helium exists as He, and so on and so forth. Neon exists as Ne. It does not exist as Ne2 or He2 or Ar2, right? So that's why D is also wrong. See, don't opt for the option that you think might be right. Check out all the options and have reasons for why an option is right and why the others are wrong. Okay, that's the best way to go about MCQs forever and ever. Okay? 27 says the table shows. Okay, 27 says the table shows the pH values of some substances that can be consumed by humans. Okay, P is like has a pH value of 6.6. It's mostly like might be orange juice, thoda sa diluted orange juice hoga. 6.6 means it's lower than 7. It's gonna be acidic. 3.1 means it's gonna be like strongly acidic. 3.1 is also not strong. 0 से लेके 3 तक 2 तक आप कह सकते हैं strong. 3 भी आप कह सकते हैं कुछ ना कुछ. But it's also like compared to P, it's gonna be more acidic than P, right? More acidic than P. Okay, and if we check R out, R is basically basic in nature. Why? Because it has a greater pH than 7. Greater pH than 7 means basic, right? 7.8, again, this is also basic in nature. So RS are basic, and 10.4 is basically more basic than S. R is more basic in nature than S. Yes, Arham. Yeah, dude. Yes. बस करा दी आप ना पढ़े, आप ना करें तैयारी, साथ साथ करेंगे. It's just one class today because I was free, so I felt like I should have a class with you. Okay, full marks, 40 out of 40, 40 out of 40. आ जाएंगे, आप करके देखना है, ऐसे पढ़ो क्लास में अटेंड करो, आ जाएंगे. ओके, which statement about these substances is correct? P is alkaline. No, P is acidic. It has a lower pH than 7, right? So P is acidic. Q has the lowest concentration of hydrogen ions. Now if you think about it, acidic एक चीज acid क्यों होती है? Because it has a greater acid क्या था? It was a proton donor, right? That means the more H plus ions there are, the more acidic a substance is, right? So P is the most acidic out of all of them. R और S तो basic है, और P Q, R और S basic है, और P और Q में Q जो है, it's the most acidic. It has a pH value of 3.1. That means it would have a greater H plus ion concentration, right? So Q has the lowest concentration of H plus ion? No, it has the highest concentration of H plus ion. So B is wrong. R can neutralize excess stomach acid. Yeah, that makes sense. R can neutralize excess stomach acid because R is basic, stomach acid is hydrochloric acid, right? So HCl आपके stomach में पड़ा होता है, it's an acid, और आप उसको base के साथ react करें. Whenever an acid and base react together, they give you salt and water, and it's basically called a neutralization reaction because the acid is neutralized by the base, or you could say the base is neutralized by the acid. So C is the right option, right? And if you check D out, D is saying S has a pH value closest to neutral. S is 7.8, whereas P is 6.6, and neutral is 7. So 6.6 is 0.4 away from 7, and A 7.8 is 0.8 away from 7. So obviously P is the closest, not S. ठीक है, that's why see इतने बच्चे D कह रहे थे, देखो देख के MCQs करने चाहिए, right? So should we revise the syllabus for Chem again or do the MCQs direct? Revise the syllabus, check out all the notes once and then you start doing the MCQs. ठीक है? Walaikum assalam, Hasib, how you doing, man? Fine, okay. अच्छा अब हम CS नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम chemistry कर रहे हैं. Okay, solution X is added to solid salt, okay, causing a gas Y to be evolved. Let's admit this too. Okay, causing a gas Y to be evolved. Gas Y dissolves in water, resulting in a solution with a pH less than 7. That means that gas Y should be acidic. See, annotate. मैं जैसे annotation कर रहा हूँ, as I'm reading the question, I'm also annotating it, right? So मैं भी ऐसे साथ-साथ information पढ़ रहा हूँ और साथ-साथ उसको understand कर रहा हूँ. So gas Y dissolves in water, resulting in a solution pH less than 7. That means all the pHs less than 7 means that it's going to be acidic. Be it a weak acid or a strong acid, we don't care about that. We know that it's going to be acidic. Gas Y acid. ठीक है, acidic है. What are the possible identities of X and Y? If gas Y is acidic, check this out. A and C are automatically wrong because ammonia cannot be gas Y. Why? Because ammonia is basic in nature. It's not acidic in nature. So you could automatically, eliminate A and C. Now between B and D, it's saying that solution X is added to solid salt. Now obviously, what should the solid salt be in order for it to give you carbon dioxide? Because we know that the gas Y is now going to be carbon dioxide, right? So what should solution X be? What should solid salt be in order to react with solution X to give you a gas which is carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide कैसे बनेगा? If you take solution X and you add solution X, अब option आपके पास सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड है और dilute हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड है. HCl अगर मैं एक solid salt के साथ react करूं, let's say X, उसके साथ react करूं, so carbon dioxide might be formed, right? And what could that solid be? That solid could be any metal carbonate. We've studied, carbonates, right? Carbonates, they give you metal carbonates, they react with acid to give you salt, water and carbon dioxide. And that metal carbonate can be magnesium carbonate or mostly what you use is calcium carbonate, right? अगर हम कहते हैं कि यार सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड क्यों नहीं हो सकता, so you dumbos, if you like just think for a moment, solution X, let's suppose आपके पास सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड है और सॉलिड जो है, कौन सा ऐसा सॉलिड है जो सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड के साथ रिएक्ट करता है? there are very very limited options जो आपने नहीं पढ़े हैं solids, but there are limited options. और HCl के साथ कौन सा ऐसा solid है जो react करके आपको जो है सोडियम हाइड्रोक्साइड के साथ कौन सा ऐसा solid है जो react करके कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड देता है? Nothing comes to mind, right? Obviously then D is the right option, B is wrong, right? Because hydrochloric acid would react with this metal solid salt जो है, कोई भी carbonate होता है उसके साथ react करता है, metal plus carbonate. Sir, we will miss you Dumbos. It's okay, life आपसे पहले भी बहुत है बच्चे जो हैं से ATP ओके, आपसे पहले भी बहुत बच्चे इमोशनल जाते हैं इस सेशन से. सो इट्स ओके, वी आर यूज्ड टू दिस. लास्ट क्लास में हम काफ़ी चिलिंग्स करेंगे, बट फॉर नाउ लेट्स जस्ट सॉल्व द MCQs. ओके, व्हिच सब्सटेंस रिएक्ट्स विद डाइल्यूट सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड इन द प्रिपरेशन ऑफ अ प्योर सैंपल ऑफ लेड सल्फेट? लेड सल्फेट अगर हम अपनी सॉल्युबिलिटी रिवाइज करें, ऑल सल्फेट्स आर सॉल्युबल एक्सेप्ट फॉर LMS एंड कैस्ट्रोबार. All sulfate salts are soluble except for LMS and castrobar. और LMS क्या है? Lead sulfate, mercury sulfate, silver sulfate, calcium sulfate, strontium sulfate, barium sulfate. And obviously this is lead sulfate. It's an insoluble salt. और insoluble salt की preparation कैसी होती थी? You take two soluble salts and then you add them to water and you mix them together and then a precipitate is going to be formed, obviously. ठीक है? So if you check this out, it's saying that which substance would react with dilute sulfuric acid? Now one of the it's and not actually a salt, it's basically H2SO4 उसने लिया है, लेकिन H2SO4 can also be regarded as the substance that you are adding, right? तो H2SO4 का मतलब है कि H plus ions है और SO4 2 minus ions है. और H2SO4 अगर आपने लिए तो ये एक आपने soluble चीज़ ले ली. soluble salt इसको नहीं कहते, it's an acid obviously, but ये एक soluble substance है in the formation of lead. दूसरी चीज़ क्या है? lead का एक soluble salt ले लें. lead के soluble salts you could take lead nitrate only, because if you say कि lead iodide ले लें, lead chloride ले लें, वो भी insoluble हो सकते हैं. So lead nitrate is basically a soluble salt. So you had lead 2 plus ions and NO3 minus ions, and obviously lead sulfate is going to precipitate. Lead is going to come into contact with these sulfate ions, a precipitate is going to be formed जो कि lead sulfate है, और H plus और NO3 जो है ये आपस में HNO3 acid रह जाएगा उसमें, ठीक है. So it's saying that what should be the substance? It should obviously be aqueous lead nitrate. Lead foil नहीं है, lead foil इसलिए नहीं है बिकॉज अगर आप लेड ले लें और आप उसको H2SO4 के साथ रिएक्ट करें तो इट्स गोना गिव यू गाइस लेड सल्फेट प्लस हाइड्रोजन gas, right? But the problem here is that lead will also be remaining, and lead sulfate is an insoluble salt, right? So if it's an insoluble salt, then you don't need to react it with lead foil, right? Because insoluble salt की जो preparation है, जो insoluble salt की preparation है, वो हम कैसे करते हैं? वो हम दो soluble salts उसके लेते हैं. So B, C and D, ये B, C and D जो तीनों चीज़ें आपने ली हुई हैं, ये basically आपके पास soluble salt की preparation के लिए इस्तेमाल होता है, राइट. एंड द कॉन्सेप्ट बिहाइंड इट इज़ दिस दैट जब आप इसको सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड के साथ रिएक्ट करते हैं तो ये डाइल्यूट सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड अगर एक्सेस में होगा तो आपके पास जो चीज़ कंटेनर में रह जाएगी दैट विल बी लेड सल्फेट एज वेल एज सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड एज वेल, और जो अगर ये लिमिटिंग हुआ तो ये ख़त्म हो जाएगा, लेकिन सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड फिर भी आपके पास प्रेजेंट होगा, ठीक है. सो इट्स प्रैक्टिकली नॉट फीजिबल टू डू इट विद टू रिएक्ट द लेड फॉयल विद सल्फ्यूरिक एसिड, ठीक है. यू हैव टू टेक द soluble salt, which is lead nitrate. Question 30 says, and there are multiple other reasons for that, but who cares? I'm not going to go into detail. ठीक है. Question 30 says the diagram shows the structure of an alloy. And what is an alloy? An alloy is basically a mixture of metals with other elements. And why do we need it? देखो, there was a story behind the formation of an alloy. और वो क्या था? The reason why scientists came up with an alloy was they were using iron in construction. लेकिन वो कह रहे थे कि यार, iron has so many beautiful properties, right? It's a metal. Mostly metals have so many beautiful properties. They have high melting point, they have high boiling point, and all the other things. But the problem was that it was malleable, they were ductile, they were not, you couldn't do any construction with them, right? Because their layers, metal kya hai? It's a lattice of positive ions. Lattice means it's a regular arrangement of positive ions in its sea of delocalized electrons. So if it was a regular arrangement, whenever a certain amount of force was applied, all the atoms would slide over each other, or the layers would slide over each other, and it would be bent, and you would bend it into shapes and hammer it into structures, which is called malleable and ductile. So the reason why they came up with alloys was to utilize all the other properties of the metals, but also make it hard and strong, right? And that's why they disrupted the regular lattice, they disrupted the structure. Now the layers can no longer slide over each other. That's how an alloy came into being, okay? I think which statement about alloys is correct? Alloys can only be formed by mixing copper or iron with other elements. Only be formed? Can alloys only be formed by mixing copper? And no, alloy is, steel is an alloy, usme iron plus carbon hai. You have stainless steel, which is iron plus carbon plus nickel plus chromium. So it's not just copper or iron with other metals, right? And you could use other elements as well, like carbon either, or jaise maine nickel, chromium to metals hai, but you could use other non-metals as well. So A is wrong. B says carbon and iron are the only two elements in stainless steel. No, you have iron and carbon. They are the elements in steel, just steel, right? And if you want to make stainless steel, you have to add nickel and chromium to it, right? So that's B is also wrong. In an alloy, there is attraction between positive ions and its sea of delocalized electrons. That is absolutely true. And the reason why it's true is because it's a mixture of metals with other elements. Because it's a mixture, the metal will contain its properties. Mixture की क्या चीज़ आपने पढ़ी थी कि अगर आप सैंड लेते हैं और उसको मिक्स करते हैं आयरन के साथ, आयरन की अपनी प्रॉपर्टीज होंगी, सैंड की अपनी प्रॉपर्टीज होंगी, एंड दे विल बी देयर इन द मिक्सचर, राइट? कंपाउंड जब बनता है वो एक कंप्लीटली नई चीज बनती है. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, यू टेक सोडियम, इट्स अ मेटल, क्लोरीन इज अ पॉइजनस गैस, NaCl इज एन एडिबल सॉल्ट, राइट? कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट प्रॉपर्टीज. NaCl हैज कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट प्रॉपर्टीज देन क्लोरीन एंड देन सोडियम, राइट? बट अ मिक्सचर विल हैव द प्रॉपर्टीज ऑफ इट्स कंस्टिट्यूएंट्स. कंस्टिट्यूएंट्स का मतलब है कि आपके पास जो चीज़ों से मिक्सचर बना होता है उनकी जो प्रॉपर्टीज होती हैं, मिक्सचर की भी वो प्रॉपर्टीज. सो सिंस alloy is a mixture, metals they have metals, they have a lattice of positive ions and they have delocalized electrons. So obviously इनकी जो alloy होगा इनमें भी जो है यही चीज़ होगी. They will have a strong attraction between positive ions and sea of delocalized electrons, and that is the reason why alloys can also conduct electricity. This was one MCQ that came and many students got it wrong. Alloy कैसे electricity conducts है भाई, उसमें mixture of metal है, metal उसमें added है, means it can conduct all the things a metal can do, and alloy can do that too. And then it's another debate whether it's going to have the same electrical conductivity, whether it's going to have the same thermal conductivity. That's another debate, but it will do all the others. So C is the right option. If you check D out, D saying the alloy brass has a chemical formula. Alloys, they don't have chemical form, it's a mixture, right? So अगर brass की मैं बात करूँ, brass basically क्या चीज़ है? Brass is a mixture of a metal which is copper with zinc, right? तो brass जो है copper है और उसके साथ zinc जो है वो उसका copper और zinc का एक mixture बनाया हुआ है इन्होंने. तो it doesn't have any chemical formula. copper है और ये zinc है, बस ये एक mixture बना है. जैसे sand plus iron जब आप करते हैं तो आप कहते हैं a mixture of sand and iron has a chemical formula flana. No, it does not have a chemical formula. So D is also wrong. Now 31 says, which compound has the lowest percentage by mass of nitrogen? You guys could do that, man. It's very simple at this point. Percentage by mass is what? Part by whole into 100%. Ain't that true? परसेंटेज बच्चे होते थे निकालते थे. पार्ट क्या? नाइट्रोजन का जो मास है दैट्स गोना बी योर पार्ट डिवाइडेड बाय होल, जो कि टोटल मास है पूरे एक इस कंपाउंड का जो टोटल मास, एंड देन यू मल्टीप्लाई इट विद 100%. दैट विल गिव यू द परसेंटेज बाय मास, एंड द लोएस्ट परसेंटेज बाय मास वुड बी योर आंसर. समबडी सेइंग B. I think B is also B might be true. Yeah, B seems right because nitrogen is क्या 2 times N, so you have the mass of nitrogen is 2 times 14 in this compound, and the entire MR of this compound, the entire mass of this compound is 132, and you times it with 100%. You do all the same things for all of these, and visually I feel like B might be the right answer. Sir, you are goat. Thanks, man. Okay, so B seems to be the right option. लेकिन आप सारे calculate करो. This would be like 28 over 16 to 100%. C would be like C क्या आएगा? 3 times 14, that gives me 42. So this would be 42 over 149 into 100%. And sorry, नहीं कम आ रहा है, ये नहीं बन सकता. चेक कर लें, कैलकुलेट कर लें. मुझे कहा बी एवरीबडी सेइंग बी, सो बी सीम्स राइट. ठीक है, और इधर जो है नहीं हाईएस्ट नहीं लोएस्ट कह रहा है. 28 divided by 18 to 100. So you have to read. I can't read the question for you guys, and you have to read the questions yourself. You have to use your eyes, and if your eyesight is weak, you have to use glasses while you're giving the paper, please. Okay, moving on. Caffeine is a stimulant found in coffee. Mr. Mazmuni, let me mute you, man. Okay. Caffeine is a stimulant found in coffee. Which formula represents caffeine? You just need to count the total number of carbon atoms. You just need to count the total number of hydrogens, then nitrogens, and then oxygens. Count kar le. Saron ko count kar. I can't count it, man. You just count it. Carbon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 carbons हैं. तो C आपके पास 7 नहीं है, sorry. एक और भी, हाँ ये भी 8 carbons हैं. तो C 8 आ गया. फिर hydrogens count कर ले. Yeah, thank you guys. Hydrogens count kar le. 3 hydrogens here plus 3, that's 6, and then that's 9, and then that's 10. So you have 10 hydrogens. How many nitrogens do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to put ticks like this. इसको ticks डालें, आसान तरीका हो जाएगा. ticks डालते जाएं जो आप count करते जाएं. So N would be 4, and then oxygens कितने हैं? Obviously 1, 2, and then I can't see any other oxygens. So oxygens are 2. So C8, H10, N4, O2. C is the right option. Yes, thank you, Faraz Ahmed Sahab. Thank you. Okay. Which sample does not contain a number of atoms equal to the Avogadro's constant? Right, that's a good question, right? So Avogadro's constant is 6.02 into 10 raised to the power 23. But it's saying which sample does not contain the number of atoms equal to the Avogadro's constant. These are molecules. This is a molecule, this is a molecule, and this is a molecule. So we have to convert it into atoms, right? And you're given mass. So if you use the formula method, you could say mass, first of all, go into the moles of nitrogen, right? And from the moles of nitrogen, you have to go into the molecules of nitrogen. And from the molecules of nitrogen, you have to go into the atoms of N, right? So mass is equal to mole times molar mass. Mass is 14. The number of moles of nitrogen we don't know. Molar mass of nitrogen is what? Nitrogen is 14. Add 14 more or times it by 2 because you have 2 of those. So N is equal to 0.5. These are the moles of N2, right? ये N2 की moles है. Now I have to find the molecules of N2. Or what you could do is these are the moles of N2. 0.5 moles जो हैं वो N2 के. तो N के कितने moles होंगे? You times this by 2, right? So 0.5 times 2, you get 1 mole of N. ठीक है, एंड देन 1 मोल ऑफ n को आप फर्दर कैलकुलेशन में इस्तेमाल करें, नंबर ऑफ पार्टिकल्स इक्वल्स पार्टिकल्स या एटम्स जो आपने फाइंड करने, इस केस में दीज आर एटम्स, तो द नंबर ऑफ एटम्स इक्वल मोल टाइम्स 6.02 इंटू 10⁻23, तो इसके मोल कितने आए 1 है, तो 1 इंटू 6.02 इंटू 10⁻23 इज गोना गिव यू 6.02 इंटू 10⁻23, तो दिस हैज़ द एटम्स इक्वल टू द Avogadro's constant. Sir, why we multiply by 2? Wouldn't it be divided by 2? No, it wouldn't be divided by 2. You have to find the number of atoms, right? और N2 का ये 0.5 moles जो हैं वो N2 के हैं, 0.5 moles N2 के हैं, जिसका मतलब है 2 नाइट्रोजन्स हैं इसमें, तो आपके पास कितने मोल्स होंगे एक नाइट्रोजन के लिए, ऐसे कर लें 2 नाइट्रोजन्स के लिए 0.5 मोल्स हैं, तो अगर एक नाइट्रोजन होगा तो कितने मोल्स होंगे, x इज इक्वल टू 0.5 over, no, it's not 0.5 over 2. 0.5 over 2 galat hai, what am I saying? Let me give you another technique to do. It's the same. What I've done is correct. Let me just fix this for you. Who asked the question? Mr. Maz Munir. So let me just fix this. What you could have done is you could have done another trick. What you could have done is you find the number of molecules of nitrogen first. So 0.5 times 6.02 into 10⁻23 would give you the number of molecules of N2. मॉलिक्यूल्स ऑफ N2 आ जाएंगे ऐसे, और मॉलिक्यूल्स ऑफ N2 जब आप आ गए आपके पास, अब आप एटम्स ऑफ N2 फाइंड करें। अब आप एटम्स कैसे फाइंड कर सकते हैं N2 से? थिंक अबाउट इट लाइक दिस, N2 इज N ट्रिपल बॉन्डेड टू N, राइट? सो इफ यू हैव N triple bonded to N, N triple bonded to N, and you would have like these many molecules of N triple bonded to N. तो उसमें atoms of N कितने? एक molecule of N2 में 2 atoms of N है, एक molecule of N2 में 2 atoms of N है, एक molecule of N2 में 2 atoms of N है, तो जो इससे आंसर आएगा उसको times by 2 आपने करना है। That's why we times it by 2. We did not divide by 2. What's wrong, guys? We time it by 2. Don't divide by 2. क्या हो गया? Time it by 2. देखो मोल्स जब आप कैलकुलेट करें, मोल इज इक्वल टू 14 over 28. These are the moles of N2, right? N2 के मोल्स हैं, तो कितने N है आपके पास? 2 N है. You have to find the moles of N, right? Because it's asked you the atoms, not the molecules. Yeah, multiply. I hope you got this, man. So A is wrong, and similarly B अगर मैं कैलकुलेशन करूँ तो B भी गलत बनता है, क्योंकि B में भी 6.02 into 10⁻23 एटम्स बनते हैं टोटल। कैसे? 6 grams ऑफ वाटर को आप मोल्स ऑफ वाटर में कन्वर्ट करें, फिर मोल्स ऑफ वाटर से मॉलिक्यूल्स ऑफ वाटर निकाल के उसको 3 से मल्टीप्लाई करें, बिकॉज द टोटल एटम्स इन 1 मॉलिक्यूल ऑफ H2O आर 3, राइट? एंड सिमिलरली हीलियम का अगर आप देखें तो हीलियम भी 6.02 into 10⁻23 ही बनता है। वाई? बिकॉज 4 grams को आप मोल्स में कन्वर्ट करें, वंस यू गेट मोल्स of helium, then you times it by 6.02 into 10⁻23 because you're already atoms हैं. So C is also, D को अगर मैं check करूँ, I know that D is the right option. I've done this, right? D क्यों right है? Because mole equals mass equals mole times molar mass. Mass 28 है, मोल फाइंड करना है, मोलर मास ऑफ कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड इज 12 + 16 दैट्स 28, सो N इज इक्वल टू 28 over 28 दैट्स 1, राइट? तो एक मोल आ गया, एंड वी नीड टू फाइंड, एंड दिस इज ऑफ कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड, राइट? सो यू हैव टू फाइंड द मॉलिक्यूल्स ऑफ कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड फर्स्ट, तो 1 times 6.02 into 10⁻23 would give you the molecules of carbon monoxide, but we have to find atoms मांगे, और एक मॉलिक्यूल ऑफ कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड में 2 एटम्स हैं, राइट? सो टाइम्स इट बाय 2, ओके? सर एक MCQ में इतना टाइम लगा दिया तो गया पेपर? नो, इट्स कॉमन सेंस, एंड इट्स लाइक जब मैंने ये MCQ देखा, कॉमन सेंस से भी मुझे पता लग रहा था D है, बिकॉज बाकी तीनों से आपके पास एटम्स जो हैं वो बेसिकली 6.02 into 10⁻23, D से ऑटोमेटिकली, क्योंकि इफ़ यू फाइंड द मोलर मैसेस फर्स्ट, ये 28 आता है मोलर मैसेस का, और 28 डिवाइड बाय 28 आपको एक मोल आता है, लेकिन उससे एवोगाड्रो जो एटम्स आएंगे वो टाइम्स बाय 2 आगे। सो जब आपकी प्रैक्टिस होती है ना, तो आप कर सकते हो ये चीज़। मैंने देखी, पता लगा दिया था कि भाई D is the right option. Okay, so D is the right option. You have to be a little bit faster, right, and use common sense some places. ये तो प्रैक्टिस, ऐसे सवाल कैलकुलेशन का आ गया तो प्रैक्टिस के लिए तो मैं सारे कराऊंगा ना, आप लोगों ने फिर उधर थोड़ा सा तेज होना है कैलकुलेशंस में। एंड ऑब्वियसली आई ऑल्सो टेल यू समथिंग, 40 MCQs में ऑलमोस्ट 15 MCQs ऐसे होते हैं जो विच रिक्वायर्स यू टू अटेम्प्ट देम इन लाइक 3 seconds। 3 to 5 seconds में उसका आंसर आपको मिल जाता है, बूम 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 बूम, बहुत स्पीड में। सर हम कहाँ आपके लेवल पे, दैट्स नहीं, बस मैं क्या ही बताऊँ। ओके, the electrolysis of concentrated aqueous sodium chloride and molten sodium chloride is shown. So concentrated aqueous sodium chloride, Na plus ion, Cl1 minus ion. Since it's aqueous, it will also have the H plus ion and the OH minus ion. And molten sodium chloride only will have Na plus and Cl1 minus ions, right? So electrode 1 पे कह रहे हैं क्या हो गया? Because it's electrode 1 is the cathode, does not depend whether it's concentrated or dilute. The H plus ion will discharge because H plus ion is faster than the Na plus ion. It has a greater tendency tendency to discharge because it is more, H plus ion is more reactive than the Na plus ion, but Na metal is more reactive than hydrogen, right? Ions की reactivity opposite हो जाती है. मैंने पढ़ाई हुई सारी चीज़ें आप लोगों ने नहीं पढ़ा, बस आपको बता रहा हूँ that H plus will win the race when it comes to Na plus and H plus, and H plus wins the race, goes at the cathode, gains an electron, becomes H, but we know H exists in the form of H2, therefore two hydrogen ions must have gone together to gain two electrons, right? So इधर electrode 1 पे तो hydrogen gas बन रहा है, so obviously A and D are wrong automatically, B और C में option है. electrode 2 पे क्या बन रहा है? Cl minus है, Cl minus goes at the electrode 2, 2 Cl minus go together, they each lose 2 electron and Cl2 is formed, right? So chlorine is formed right here. So hydrogen is formed at electrode 1 and chlorine is formed at electrode 2. B is the right option, we know. Yeah. Sir, are you recording? Yeah, I am. When an acid is added to an alkali, the temperature of the mixture rises. Do you know why it rises? Because neutralization reactions are all exothermic reactions. So if the temperature of the mixture is rising, that means heat energy is being released to the surrounding, the flask is getting hotter, or whenever you are performing the experiments getting hotter. That's why we say okay, neutralization reactions are exothermic. So decomposition, पहली बात ये decomposition नहीं है. Acid being added to an alkali is a titration reaction, neutralization reaction. So कहते हैं, so A and B are automatically wrong. Between C and D, the reason why, if the mixture temperature rises, that means it's not endothermic. If it were cooling down, then it would be endo. If it is rising, it's gonna be exo. Okay. Sir, let's suppose in a question where it says endothermic reaction में temperature drop होता है या increase, we don't know what is the reaction to the surroundings, or is it the liquid or what. See, I'll give you guys a very simple explanation to this. Sir, अगर हम सारों को C कर दें कितने marks आने हैं, you're not gonna get. Sir, decomposition has been removed from the course completely? No, decomposition has not been removed, man. What's wrong? वो आई थिंक IGCSE या O levels में सिर्फ उसका रिएक्शन हट गया था, लेकिन कोई ऐसी कोई मुश्किल चीज़ तो नहीं. डिकम्पोजिशन क्या है? Thermal when a substance breaks down with the action of heat, right? So calcium oxide metal carbonate, group 2 metal carbonates की decomposition से metal oxide बनता है और carbon dioxide बन जाता है, right? Carbonate से carbon dioxide बन जाते हैं, एक ऑक्सीजन रह के वो metal oxide बन जाता है. ऐसी कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है. मुझे तो 40 हैं सारी C करके. ओके मैन, ओके. The lead in a pencil is okay. I was telling you guys about a simple rule to keep in mind for endothermic and exothermic reaction. Sorry Faraz, मुझे भूल गया था आपका सवाल. ये इधर उधर की बातें हो जाती हैं चैट में, तो मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ. ओके, सिंपल रूल ये है. Remember, you cannot see or observe the system. जो आप ये बात पढ़ते हैं ना कि एंडोथर्मिक रिएक्शन में होता ये है कि द एनर्जी, द हीट इज बेसिकली ट्रांसफर्ड फ्रॉम द सराउंडिंग्स टू द सिस्टम. सराउंडिंग का टेम्परेचर ड्रॉप हो जाता है और सिस्टम का जो टेम्परेचर है वो बढ़ जाता है, केमिकल पोटेंशियल एनर्जी सिस्टम की बढ़ जाती है. वो बात ठीक है, बट यू कैन ओनली ऑब्जर्व द सराउंडिंग्स. अगर एक फ्लास्क गर्म हो रहा है, दैट मीन्स इज एक्सोथर्मिक. हाँ, आप ये मेरे साथ आर्ग्यू कर सकते हैं कि सर एक्सोथर्मिक तो दो काम हो रहे होते हैं. एक, हीट एनर्जी इज रिलीज टू द सराउंडिंग्स, देयरफॉर सराउंडिंग का टेम्परेचर शुड इंक्रीज, लेकिन सिस्टम का टेम्परेचर शुड डिक्रीज. यू कैन नॉट सी द सिस्टम. सिस्टम इज ऑन अ माइक्रो लेवल. एक चीज होती है मैक्रो लेवल पे, एक होती है माइक्रो लेवल पे. यू कैन नॉट ऑब्जर्व व्हाट्स हैपनिंग इन द सिस्टम. वट एवर द ऑब्जर्वेशन इज, हीटिंग, कूलिंग, ब्लास्ट, फाइट्स, बर्निंग, वट एवर इट इज, it's basically the surroundings. So अगर mixture heat up हो रहा है, it means the surroundings are getting hotter. Mixture cool हो रहा है, it means the surroundings are getting cooler. अगर beaker hot हो रहा है, means the surroundings are getting hot, right? You can't observe the system. ठीक है, तो हाँ वो बात ठीक है कि system की जो temperature for an exothermic reaction, surroundings की temperature increase हो जाएगी, system का temperature decrease हो जाएगा, chemical potential energy system का decrease हो जाएगा. तो वो हमें कैसे पता लगे? वो आपको नहीं पता लग सकता, right? So I hope you got that. Sir, your voice glitched in between. You could watch the recording, man. Okay. The lead in a pencil is made up of mixture of graphite and clay. When the percentage of graphite is increased, the pencil moves across the paper more easily. And yeah, the pencil shall move across the paper more easily because it's common sense. Graphite is a lubricant, right? And because it's a lubricant, and why is it a lubricant? Because the layers slide over each other. Weak intermolecular force of attraction between the layers, between that hexagonal layers, right? So that is why it should move, very, very easily. So which statement statement explains these observation. Graphite has a high melting point. Does high melting point justify the fact that it can move, it can slide over easily? No, it can't, right? So that's wrong. Graphite is a form of carbon, does not explain, right? So the diamond is also a form of carbon. It's basically, they are basically known as allotropes, right? Graphite is a lubricant. Yes, C is the, इसमें पता नहीं options को कोई मसला हो गया था, but C is the right option. Graphite is a non-metal, does not justify why it can move across the paper more easily. हालांकि तीनों चारों चीजें सही हैं, चारों चीजें ग्राफाइट के बारे में सही हैं, but we have to take off the option which justifies the MCQ. ठीक है? Which statement is about metal? Which statement about metals is correct? Okay, is correct? नहीं, I think it's not correct है ये. Not correct होगा, हाँ ये not correct है. They conduct electricity because of delocalized electrons that can move throughout the metal. This option is correct, but ये not correct पूछा है, इधर गुम गया है, लेकिन ये not correct. Okay. They consist of layers of atoms that can slide over each other. This is also correct. Metals do consist that, right? They have atoms that can, metal का structure ही यही है. It's a giant metallic lattice where layers can slide. Lattice क्या होता है? Regularly arranged structure, right? So the layers can slide over each other. They have a giant lattice of positively charged ions in a sea of delocalized electrons. That's also true. They have oh wait, of oppositely charged ions. It's not positively charged ions, it's oppositely charged ions. They don't have oppositely charged ions. They only have a lattice of positive ions in a sea of delocalized electrons. Plus positive ions होते हैं. Negative ions are not in a part of a metallic structure. It's a part of an ionic structure जिसमें positive और negative ions. See, मेरे से भी गलत होने लगा था, मैंने positively पढ़ लिया था, वो oppositely लिखा हुआ है. So C is not correct in fact. And D जो है, it's saying they have a giant lattice of positive ions in a sea of delocalized electrons. Yes, D is also right. So A, B and D are right, and C is the not correct option. ठीक है? Aqueous iron sulfate and aqueous sodium hydroxide react to give a precipitate. Okay, I can also explain this why it gives a precipitate, because obviously aqueous sodium hydroxide लेते हो, aqueous iron sulfate लेते हैं, it's gonna form iron hydroxide, or iron hydroxide, ये iron OH3 OH thrice जो it means that iron has a charge of +3, OH is minus, cross multiply, you get FeOH thrice. And that is basically the test that is taking place between whenever you guys are testing for these cations, because it's insoluble, आपको एक brown precipitate देखने को मिल जाते, but who cares, it's not a part of this question. ठीक है? Question क्या करे, what is the balance symbol for this reaction? सारा करके दिया हुआ है, balancing भी करके दिया. What you need to do is just check out the atoms on the left hand side and check out the atoms on the right hand side, or you could have constructed the entire equation on your own. I think it's a recent paper, ये मैंने solve भी किया है YouTube पे, पूरा मैंने इसका equation भी बनाई थी, but I'll just check out the atoms. I think that yeah, C is the right option for it, बाकी गलत हैं. If you check C out, इधर 2 atoms of iron है, तो right hand side पे भी 2 होने चाहिए, 2 times 1 2 हैं, ठीक है? If you check sulfates, you have 3 sulfates on the left hand side and you have 3 times SO4, right? So you have 3 sulfates on the right hand side and 6 NAs हैं, 3 times 2 you have 6 NAs, 6 and then hydrogens check कर लें, तो 6 times 1 you have 6 hydrogens on the left hand side and 2 times 3 you have 6 hydrogens on the right hand side. So C is the right option. बाकी A, B और D गलत हैं, चेक कर लें, atoms जो हैं नहीं मैच करेंगे, right? जैसे A में देखिए 2 atoms of iron है और इधर 1 atom of iron है, so A is wrong. Similarly आप B और D को भी गलत कर सकते हैं. Why? Because again कहीं ना कहीं इधर 6 times SO4, 6 sulfates हैं इधर, लेकिन इधर सिर्फ 3 है, so D is also wrong and B is also wrong due to B इधर 2 iron के atoms हैं, इधर 1 है, so B is also wrong, right? So you could have done this. ये मैंने ये सर YouTube पे डाला करें, मैं सारी वीडियोस देखता. Okay man, okay sure. The information is needed to calculate, okay, which information is needed to calculate the relative atomic mass of an element? ये तो अब आपके theory में भी test हुआ था. You need the mass number, or you could say the nucleon number, and you need their frequency, or you need their percentage abundance, or you need the percentage. इसको frequency कह लें, abundance कह लें, percentage कह लें, इसको mass number कह लें, या nucleon number कह लें. दोनों ठीक हैं, because mass number is technically the nucleon number, right? How do you define the mass number? As the total number of protons plus neutrons, right, in an atom. Or nucleon number is also the total number of protons and neutrons, right? So the total number of protons and neutrons in the most abundant isotope, no, in all the isotopes. जैसे chlorine है, chlorine is 1737 and this is 1735. You need both the abundances for both the isotopes, not the most. You don't just need the abundance for this one, or you don't just need the abundance for this one. You need both the abundances. जितने isotopes होंगे उतने abundances चाहिए. So A is wrong. The nucleon numbers and the total number of isotopes. You need the nucleon numbers, but you need the frequency of those isotopes. Not just the total number of those isotopes, but you also need the abundance as well, right? So B is also wrong, because main चीज तो mass number है और abundance है, right? And obviously isotopes तो चाहिए. Sir, समझ नहीं आई कि why is A wrong? The total number of protons and neutrons, ये तो mass number हो गया. In the most abundant isotope, एक isotope का तो आप नहीं लेते ना. You know that you have multiple isotopes. You have to take into consideration all the isotopes. महज जैसे क्लोरीन है, इसकी 25% abundance है, इसकी 75% abundance है. कैसे कैलकुलेट करते थे? 37 times 25 plus 35 times 37 75 divided by 100 total abundance, right? तो दोनों जितने आइसोटोप्स होंगे उतने आपके पास abundance चाहिए होती, not just the most abundant isotope. वो बेसिकली ये कह रहा है कि जो सबसे ज़्यादा जिसकी abundance होगी, जैसे 75%, सिर्फ आपको ये चाहिए नहीं, आपको और भी चाहिए, ठीक है? Have to keep this in mind. So A and B are wrong. Okay, the mass number and the abundance of each of its isotope. Yes, mass number, abundance और जितने isotopes से वो भी चाहिए, ठीक है? And D saying the atomic number and the abundance of each atomic number is only the number of protons, right? So you need the nucleon number or the mass number, not just the atomic number, ठीक है? Yeah, that's how C is the right option. Okay. Question 4 says a student adds aqueous sodium hydroxide or aqueous ammonia to test for 4 different metals compounds. Which solution contains zinc 2+? You could, expect such questions in your MCQ paper. Do you know why? Because you're already given all the information in ATP, and that is the reason why you don't memorize these things, and they are tested sometimes in your theory and sometimes in your MCQs, right? So it's saying zinc 2+. Zinc 2+ के लिए बहुत आसान सी बात है. Zinc 2+ would give you a white precipitate with a few drops, then it is soluble, and similar is the case with aqueous ammonia, right? So अगर aqueous sodium hydroxide होगा ये होगा, aqueous ammonia के लिए भी a few drops gives you a white precipitate and it's soluble, which means that it forms a colorless solution if you add aqueous ammonia, which is ammonium hydroxide, or aqueous ammonia is also NH3 aqueous. Both are correct, ठीक है? तो ये zinc 2+ का केस है. देख लें कौन सा ऑप्शन सही है. PPT is forms, PPT dissolves, PPT forms, PPT dissolves. Yes sir, is the right option. Why is B wrong? PPT forms, PPT dissolves, PPT and PPT no in excess. ये जो है ये Al3+ के लिए. Al3+ जो है वो excess NH3 में PPT stays remains, ठीक है? So B is for Al3+, not for zinc 2+. C क्यों गलत है? ये तो इधर से ही गलत हो गया, ये भी गलत है. नो PPT, ये तो सारे बातें गलत इसने लिखी हैं. और D तो बिल्कुल ही गलत है, ठीक है? So that's why B, C and D are wrong. Question 5 says, question 5 Areno says the table shows data for some particles, which row shows the correct values for W, X, Y and Z. Okay, so you're given the proton number, you're given the nucleon number, you want the number of neutrons. Well, obviously nucleon number क्या होते हैं? Total number of protons plus neutrons, which is equal to 40 in this case. और proton number 18 दिया हुआ है, तो proton की जगह 18 substitute कर लें. So 18 plus n equals 40, n is equal to 40 minus 18. That is why हम कहते हैं